Hello. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Pod Strickland. I'm your host, Shwini Poo, in this episode 315. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Stacy. That is at StacyPen89. Stacy, how are you doing on this wonderful Monday afternoon?
Well, when you're unemployed, Monday is basically Saturday, so I'm
Or
doing pretty
Friday,
well.
even.
Friday, gotta get down on Friday. So.
Yes, you do. And before we get
Shout out
started,
to the one or two people who probably get that reference.
that's a very dated reference, but it's a very great song that came out once upon a time. Before we get started, I have to make a few announcements. The first being that the Strickland has a YouTube channel, which you can subscribe to right here. If you're watching this channel right now, please hit like and subscribe to the channel. That'd be a huge help to us. The Strickland also has an Instagram, which you can subscribe to. That is at the Strick.land on Instagram. We're posting all kinds of new content on there. The Strickland also has merchandise, which you can find on our website. All kinds of cool stuff on there: hats, t-shirts, sweatshirts, coffee mugs, water bottles, you name it, we've got it. The Strickland also has a Patreon, which you can subscribe to. There are a number of different tiers. There is a $6 tier that gets you access to Pod Strickland, this podcast that I host every Friday with Prez. You also get access to the Strickland mailbag, hosted by Andrew Steele, aka Doug, aka the Doug Bag, alongside Dallas Amico. That comes every other week. You also get access to the Strickland Discord, where the conversation never stops. There are further tiers. There is a $9 tier that gets you access to Strickland Roll, my solo pod, where I rant and rave about the Knicks even more. You also get access to wonderful premium articles by Matthew Miranda, one of the best in the business. There are further tiers. There's a $15 tier, $30 tier, $50 tier, and $100 tier. Those come with a variety of additional benefits like listening in on pod recordings, merchandise discounts, and even potentially co-hosting a podcast alongside yours truly one day. Whether you choose to subscribe or not, none of this would be possible without you. And also, none of this would be possible without Bet Online, which is not loading the copy that I need to read, which is very, very frustrating. And I wish it would do that right now.
What are the odds it loads?
Here we go. Bet Online is your number one source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and match reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Before we start, sorry, Shwin.
Yeah.
Done with the ad read. There have been a couple of comments in the chat about your shirt. I think people appreciate it, but want to know what's on it. So, can you enlighten us?
There are some flags on it. There's a blue flag and a yellow and a red flag.
Like country flags, or
no? They're just random design flags.
Cool.
Yeah, nothing crazy.
Nemo Petitour wants to know if you do this out loud in your sleep as well.
I do not.
That you know
but I could. I might be. I don't know. I'm not sure. You might have to ask my dog, who doesn't speak words. So maybe you could train him to you have like the yes or no
your
things.
Your mother was right there, bro.
Yeah. But you gotta do like the yes or no cards for the dogs. But yeah. Thank you for the comments on the shirts. There's really not much Knicks related news. I guess there's one thing that came up this past week, of actual news, not just like people musing stuff. We had first heard, not from a great source. It was one of those rival team execs said, Quickley looking for something like 4 years, 100 million. Ian Begley was on the Low Post last week with Zach Lowe, obviously, and he mentioned something along the lines of, he thought an extension for Quickley around 18 to 20 million a year was kind of what he was expecting. I think that's probably the team's angle. I would guess that the previous leak, if it did come from somebody related to the Knicks, it would have been from Quickley's camp. I think they meet in the middle, something like 22, 23 million a year. And I would be fine giving him that because I think he's not just worth it, but in the environment that the salary cap seems to be going in, where apparently, it's the max the cap can jump in a year is 10%. But I imagine it's going to be close to that 10% year on year. At least that's what most of the reporting and discussion has been. I would feel pretty comfortable giving him that contract. And, whether that be because you want to keep him long term and that's a salary that you find palatable, or because that salary is one that you think will be an attractive salary to go out in a potential trade for a superstar, star, whatever package down the line. So that was actually the one thing I thought that was interesting that actually happened in Knicks land over the last week or so.
Not Summer League?
The
Knicks won 2 Summer League games.
Don't care. Did not watch a second of it. Congratulations to
Jalen
QJ.
Martin. Remember the name Jalen Martin.
Yeah. And QJ, what is it? QJ Patterson? Who did it? Whatever he is. He had wrote a very lengthy Instagram post, which if you read it, good job.
I think before that, I think some of the contracts, like, I just want to call out. There were a lot of people worried about Mitch's contract last year. Isaiah Stewart got 4 for 64. Which is funny because a lot of people who criticize Mitch's contract were like, we could have just taken Duren at 11. The team that took Duren just paid another big 4 for 64. I think that contract is really fucking good right now. He's going to be making 10% of the cap for, like, I know we have varying levels, but everyone would agree he's at minimum an above average center. I actually think you think he's better than just an above average center.
Mitch?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think
sub-elite is the word I think I would use. So.
Yeah, I was pretty worried. I didn't think the number 460 was that worrisome. I was more worried about the years. And I didn't love what I saw from Mitch last year. There was good stuff, but I thought there was
year before.
Yeah,
21,
yeah, in 21, 22. Not last year he was great last year. In 21, 22, I thought he was very up and down, which, look, that's understandable. He's coming off an injury. Still didn't make me feel great. But based on what we saw last year, I think he's he's a pretty interesting player to me in the sense of, like, it's very, very easy to focus on the things he doesn't do, because if he doesn't do things, he doesn't do them at all. Like, he does not shoot. He does not pass the ball very well. Like, I know he's gotten better at, kicking out and stuff, but, like, it's not like a great facilitator, not a great screen setter, although he's gotten a little bit better at that. And, like, to your point, yeah, like you said, he's got no real post moves, any of that shit. But the things he doesn't just do, he does them at a fucking elite level. Like, he is at worst the second best offensive rebounder in the league. He is one of the best rim protectors, rim deterrents, however you want to particularly phrase that, in the league. I think he's become now one of the most impactful box out defensive rebounder guys in the league. What does that mean in the aggregate? Sub-elite, sure. Like, I think he's really, really good. And there's a bunch of centers in this kind of, like you mentioned, like, I would say the elite group is what? It's Jokic, who's in his own fucking tier as far as I'm concerned. Jokic, Embiid.
He's in a different tier from the MVP.
Yeah.
I think I agree with you, but
yeah,
Embiid's
fucking fat ass. When Embiid's fucking fat ass can make it out of the second round, we can talk about him. We're probably going to talk about him on this podcast.
What about when he gets traded to
then he will be then it will be that the box score doesn't truly capture his full value. But I'll have to bring back my Porzingis greater than Jokic arguments back then. But no, I think, like, then you have, like, obviously Embiid, Bam. I mean, is there another elite center that I'm forgetting here?
People would have said Ayton before last year.
Yeah, Ayton's fall off has been very weird, but he can't put him in that group now. But, like, after that group, right, there's, Porzingis, there's Mitch, there's Miles Turner. And whatever.
I mean, Brook is probably in that just because of how rare his skill set is.
And Brook is good. And Brook is very good. He deserves to be in that mix. I think like people would have put Jared Allen in that mix, right? He's not elite, but he's right there with anybody else after that. And Mitch fucking Mitch absolutely destroyed him. He absolutely crushed him.
Mitch caught a body
to the point where, like, Jared Allen after the series was talking about, like, oh, I gotta go to basically
The
it's like
lights were too bright.
the lights were too bright, and then he was talking about like he's like gonna go to the weight room and shit. And I mean, I looked this up
I mean,
today.
he is first of all. He made some dirty plays in that series. I'm still convinced of that. Jared Allen, like off the court, is a classy guy. So like, I think a lot of those were meant to be like the gracious loser, right? But
Yeah. I mean, that's fine. He is a gracious loser because he's a fucking loser.
Vince Lombardi said, "Show me a gracious loser, and I'll show you a busboy." So
Yeah. Well, Vince Lombardi, new ball. But like, I just like he's talking about he needs to go lift and shit. And I'm like, dude, fucking, he's like 20
25.
days. He's like 20 days younger than Mitch. Like, this is not a weight room. Like, wait, he hasn't been in the fucking weight room? Yeah, like he's just not getting in the weight room his entire career. No, this is not like Mitch is better than him in a head-to-head matchup anyway. Like, Mitch owns him.
And I think
And
that's an argument that like some of the offensive, like people are like, well, Jared Allen does some things. He can take a dribble. He has like a little bit of a baby hook, right?
it doesn't really
I'm
matter. Like, this has been your point for a
those
while.
are very overrated. Like when people have the Mitch conversation,
Well, it's like they matter if you maybe don't have a glaring weakness at the 3 and the 4 offensively. But if you do, then Jared Allen's ability to do like a dribble handoff probably doesn't matter that much. It matters more if you're like fucking Golden State or something, right? Where you
Yeah.
don't have these glaring offensive weaknesses. Anyway, the point
But
being,
I think the with the sub elite center thing, I think it's also like I don't think the question is whether he's like after those three people you mentioned, really. Like, who are you really taking over him with confidence? No one. It's the fact that you can play 5 with Giannis, right? You can play like is Anthony Davis in this conversation? No, he's a power forward, but he can play the 5, right? I think those are the kind of things that probably lead people to devalue, or like that. So it makes his value a little bit murkier. But again, Isaiah Stewart got more money than him. Like,
yeah,
I don't know what to say at that point.
Well, I think the other thing too with the Stewart thing, which I tweeted out, like I just said, like fucking Troy Weaver has no idea what he's doing, and it's not like look if you compare everything, I don't like always doing the compare the contracts thing because sometimes
They
you
also
get
just drafted the guy everyone said we should replace Mitch with. That's what's hilarious to me.
Well, it's a lot of things. So like I don't like always doing the contract thing because sometimes like just the way things work, you might pay more than another guy who's a better player, whatever. Like I don't think in a vacuum 464 for Isaiah Stewart is necessarily like some horrible fucking deal,
Sure,
right?
but it means
But
that 4 for 60 for Mitch is a really good deal.
yeah, 100%. The Mitch contract is amazing, especially because it's descending. But the bigger thing for me with like just specific to the Pistons is forget like, okay, yeah, you drafted Dern, who apparently they loved. I think Weaver's on record saying that like basically he was like standing out on their board, and he was like if Ivy had been or if Dern had been like if Ivy had come off the board before them, they would have taken Dern at 5 or whatever the fuck it was, right? So like he's basically calling him the next best guy on their board. Okay, if you love him that much, that's fine. I don't necessarily agree, but that's fine. Okay, you drafted Isaiah Stewart the year before, who you also love, apparently. You then trade for James Wiseman last year at the trade deadline, who then he goes on record talking about like James Wiseman, this kid's talent. He's talking about him like he's fucking, Embiid or something. And then he also, people forget this, the summer before they traded for Marvin Bagley. Then he give him 3 years, $33 million. So like, what like this to me is. This is a bad allocate. It's just a bad allocation of resources you have in the front court, and like with a bunch of those guys. I mean, Bagley could theoretically play with any of them because he's like a 4. But he's been a 4 for a while. He hasn't been really great at the 4, right? Like there's a thinking maybe that maybe he's best as like a bench small ball 5 type of guy. And then you look at Stewart, like okay, Stewart shooting threes now. Does he shoot threes well enough that it matters at the 4? And can he do anything else at the 4 of the requisite like level? I don't know. I haven't seen it. Like, can any of these guys play together? I don't know. None of it makes any sense to me. And I think like if you bring it back to the Knicks, say whatever you want about, how they manage the Obi thing and, like having only 5s that do the same stuff and blah, 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 which I don't really agree with. I think Hartenstein is capable of doing very different things for Mitch, but we have not leaned on that, which is a different issue to do we have guys that can do different things. But like I think the Knicks have allocated their resources better, and the bigger thing is like they haven't used high end draft capital to draft any of these guys or bring in any of these guys, and like ultimately they're paying what they're locked in on Mitch and Hartenstein for this upcoming season at basically like I think it's like 30 or sorry 24 million, I think something like that for next season. And it's going to come down obviously with Mitch getting less money. Can they keep Hartenstein? I think they should keep Hartenstein, by the way. I think him and Mitch are basically the same age. If you can lock him up for another couple of years after this, I would love that because I think having your center rotation locked in, and they seem to be like really good buddies on and off the floor. They don't. I'm sure that they care about closing games, but I don't think they get. They clearly doesn't affect their relationship with each other, which I think is important. Um, and I just think like yes, can Hartenstein do more for sure, but we know for sure that he's effective doing the things that we're currently asking our centers to do. And so like I just think when you look at kind of the Pistons and how I don't know what they want from any of these guys. Because to me, Wiseman is not Duran, who isn't Stewart, who isn't Bagley, and you're not asking any of those guys to do the same things, and they don't do the same things or provide the same things. So it doesn't really make any sense to me. Whereas I think the Knicks have like, we've talked about this with Tibbs, where it's like he puts guys in boxes and blah blah blah. While there is a downside to that at times in terms of lack of experimentation, I think the value of it is it makes it kind of easy to deal with some of your positional stuff, especially in the front court, where like you're like, okay, we want our centers to protect the rim and be good rebounders, and then we need our fours to like do shit offensively, right? Like that more or less, like that's like the kind of thing you're going for. Whereas I look at the Pistons, I'm like, I have no idea what you want from any of these guys. Like, are you asking James Wiseman to just be a role man, like you want maybe Duran to be? But then I see Duran doing all kinds of like cool dribble stuff in the summer league, and I'm like, well, now you asking Duran to be Bam? And if so, like, do you know why Bam is good and how that makes no sense for Jalen to have James Wiseman on your team anymore, or Marvin Bagley, or probably Isaiah fucking Stewart at 4 years, 64 million? So yeah, I mean, long story short, I think I think we talked about this going back to the contract thing, but like, Mitch's contract is great. I mean, the Knicks are in a good position with that deal, and like, you know, uh, they're kind of in a fine position with the cap probably for the next 2 years, including next season. After that is when they will really need to make a lot more tough decisions, and they'll
But you got to
probably
pay Brunson will opt out, right?
yeah. I mean, you would think Brunson opts out. He won't be eligible for a super max because the Knicks didn't draft him and he wasn't traded to the Knicks while he was on his rookie contract. Ditto with Randall. I actually feel like the Randall thing is interesting because I don't particularly want to pay him his next contract. But at the same time, I would guess that a lot of teams in the NBA feel the same way about him. So
So
it's
that
like,
might decrease his value.
yeah, it's like, so can you get him at a good price where all of a sudden you're like, I guess this contract is fine now?
Like this contract, like I think the contract he's on right now is fine. I don't think it's a negative value contract at all. I think we've discussed that. I think getting back to your original question with Quickley, let's say he gets $22 million. That ends up being what, a seventh of the cap?
Whatever, 22 divided by 136 right now. That's the salary cap. But if you want to use like, I mean, I think it's more pertinent to use like what the up to the luxury tax really, right? Like it's 165. After 165 is when you have to start paying tax. So
So
I
that's
don't know.
at that point it's about 12% of the cap. And it's interesting because you can look at it on the surface and say, well, he is coming off the bench. He probably will come off the bench. I personally am in no rush to, even though he closes a lot of games over Grimes, rightfully, I'm in no rush to bench Grimes or even RJ for him. Would you pay 1/8 of your salary cap for a guy who's your sixth man? I think the answer is yes. Again, that's $6 million more per year than what Stewart got. If you don't want me to pick on that contract, he would be making Dylan Brooks money. I think IQ is a more impactful player than Dylan Brooks.
He's also not an asshole that is like fucking psychotic, which
yeah, and I think we should talk about how much. I'll say this: like we talked a lot about RJ, we talked about him, but like I think the fact that RJ was this polished dude, really mentored well, and is not an asshole in that draft. I mean, I'm not even saying the stuff that's going on with Zion is his fault. Never had to deal with that with RJ. We needed that kind of a player at that time. I think when you judge that third pick, I think that should matter. Bring it back to IQ. I think that there's just very few real conversations about him. There's people who are like, well, his on-ball defense is like he's not guarding the best player. He's not a lockdown guy. That ignores the team defense. And I think one thing from all the conversations that I become more confident in is seeing it. Yeah, team defense matters a lot more than on-ball. Who do you think is a better defender, Pat Beverly or Drew Holiday? It's always been Drew. And the difference is it shows up. Yes, you can throw away the stats all you want. It will show up in the impact stats because Pat Beverly is not some game-changing off-ball defender. He is locked down on ball. Drew is both, right? The off-ball guy, and like this is the same thing with Caruso. People focus on, like some of the tape of him just being great on ball. What made him great was his off-ball defense. Lonzo Ball wasn't even that great of an on-ball defender. Extremely impactful because of what he did off-ball. So, how do you quantify that though, right? How do you quantify the fact that he's coming off the bench when you look at he's a little bit of a weird evaluation case because it has been 3 consistent years of just incredible impact numbers, but he's come off the bench for a lot of that. He's also played against starters for a lot of that. He's also closed for a lot of that. Those make it a tricky evaluation. I think looking at the tape, I think that what I'll ask you is this, right? If IQ didn't improve or remained an impactful defender with kind of an up and down offensive game, who was overall a net positive, do you think that $22 million would be worth it? And well, I think if he hits his upside, then I think it's definitely worth it. So my question is this a case where a $22 million is kind of an average of his upside outcome versus like what he is, like kind of an expected value there? Or is it more, you think it's fair value for either?
I mean, I think it's fair value, but it has
fair value for what he is now. Do you think it's fair value for what if this is just who he is?
Yeah, let's put it this way. Do you think that Malcolm Brogdon, forget the injury stuff, let's just assume Malcolm Brogdon's healthy. Do you think paying him $22 million a year is like fine?
For that team, yes, and I think we're in the same boat. So
right,
yeah.
So yeah, I think it's fine. Like I think if Quickley stays exactly the same as he is right now, let's assume that he plays better in the playoffs, but like he's a 6th man of the year type of candidate every single.
Well, that is an assumption you're making, right? That he would play better in the playoffs.
It is, but I think at that price point, you're more just talking about like, when you pay guys at a certain point, like, yes, you're baking in, like, ideally, if you're the Knicks, you're like, we're going to be a playoff team. We're paying this guy because we want to keep him, and we do think he'll be playing better in the playoffs. But when we're talking about performance levels for a big part of it, which I think has become like weirdly underrated in Knicks conversations this summer, is like, yes, the regular season matters. Like, you have to win games in the regular season to get there. But like,
people forget Jerome James real quick.
Yeah. But like, yeah, I mean, going back to it, like, if there were no injury concerns with Malcolm Brogdon, I don't think anybody thinks that contract is onerous. The reason why there's been like, why
onerous, right?
Yeah, onerous, whatever it is, who knows? I'm Indian, right? But like, if nobody would think that contract is bad other than the injury issue. And I think that's about right to me. Like an elite bench player is a guy who is nominally can come in and also start games for you, which is about a $20 million, $21, $22 million player, and a guy that gives you value on both ends and blah, blah, blah. Like all that stuff makes sense. So like, I think that contract is basically fair value for what Immanuel Quickley is right now. Like, I think that's basically, I mean, people will be like, oh, well, last year he took a leap. He did take a leap last year. But I think more or less, like, he has been that player since about, after the All-Star break, his second year. Like, I think since that point, he's been that type of player and consistently.
The defense has improved, though.
It's improved for sure.
He's improved every year, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. But I think, like, more or less, he's been a high impact guy, at least as
I think that's another thing. He has improved every season.
Yeah.
I think it's been incremental, but it has been like First season, he couldn't get to the rim at all. Second season, he had flashed some finishing. Third season, he put it together where he used that finishing to leverage his floater. His first season, like he was lost for just like every rookie for the first half of the season on defense. Became a pretty quality defender actually the second half. Second season, just very impactful on defense. Third season, legitimately an elite off-ball defender,
Right.
pretty solid. So he's improved every year.
And so so like I think
go.
that deal is like, yeah, it's fair value for what he is now if he never improves. But like he's 23.
Also reason to believe he's
right.
Gonna
He's 23. So like,
and he's 23, but the kind of 23 where he has improved every year.
Right. And so like you're probably comfortable betting like, I mean, I don't particularly find anything he did this past season as unsustainable to the point that it would hurt his impact. Like if you want to look at something, a very granular thing that probably isn't sustainable or might not be sustainable, I think he had like something like 50 something percent on his floaters. Like he might not be a 50 plus percent
floater.
It's
sustainable
guy.
For the Knicks to be 12 points better with him on defense?
Maybe not, but he's been what, like a +9, +6, plus, like he's consistently.
If he was a starter though, if he was playing starter minutes,
I mean, maybe because Brunson's a terrible defender. So it's possible like the defense would get better.
If he was a starter, he wouldn't be starting over Brunson, right? He would be starting over Grimes or RJ. So.
Well, we can open that can of worms later. But like I think that
No, I'm not even saying he should. What I'm saying is if he was in that role, would his defensive impact?
I don't know. The numbers all seem to like him in those lineups. I don't know how to answer that because we've never seen it because we couldn't start him over Alec Burks or Evan Fournier apparently. But
it was never it's Evan Fournier.
Yeah, but like
Alec Burks should have been starting that year to be clear.
But I just like I think that contract has a chance to be really really good. Like the difference between somebody like him and a Tyler Hero or Jordan Poole is that those guys have never been good defenders. So like their entire value came from or does still come from what they do offensively. So let's say like you think they're better offensive players than Quick, which fine, whatever. Okay. But like I know that Quick is a good offensive player and I know that he is at least a good defender if not better than that. And I know that he brings like the thing about good defense is it gives you a stable floor. Like there's no when you go through a shooting slump, his defense will still be there. When his scoring and shooting comes up, all of a sudden you start reaping the benefits of like, oh my God, is him. And this is what has happened the last 2 years with him, where it's like you deal with these like the first couple of months, when him and RJ, neither of these guys apparently for the first 2 months of the year, they can't fucking shoot. They look like every time they shoot, it looks like it's going to hit the front of the rim, like whatever it is. And then around December or late December or whatever, they start getting it together. And it's like once, and both years this has happened quickly. Once his offense has started coming around, all of a sudden, like, for the first month and a half, I'll have to be like, I don't really care. His impact is still really good. Like the plus minus is great. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm still comfortable throwing him out there. And then he starts scoring, and then it's like, holy shit, the impact goes way and way up, and it becomes more obvious. So like what you're basically betting on is, one, can he continue to just be that type of player, maybe better version of that player as time goes on? Hopefully one that doesn't need a fucking 2-month start to wind up. And then the other part is, like you would hope and expect maybe, or hopefully expect him to become a solid playoff performer, So like those are really the two things you're betting on with that contract. But even if he fails at both, like I still think there'd be teams that'd be like, we'll take him. We're just trying to make the fucking playoffs. And this is the thing that people like dismiss constantly is like, well, oh my God, he played poorly in the playoffs. We can't give him that contract. It's like, I promise you, if he has the same exact season next year, let's say he has the same exact season, and we go to the playoffs and he can't hit a shot in the playoffs. I promise you there'll be teams in the league that would still look at him and be like, oh shit, we need to get to the fucking playoffs. We'll take him off your hands. We'd love to have him on our team. Yeah, we'd love to start him.
I mean, Dylan Brooks wasn't great in the playoffs. He got $80 million.
Yeah, I mean, Dylan Brooks, that was a funny situation. But like, I think this is the same thing. I've said this about Randall too, where it's like, I reject the idea that Randall is like, who would give up value for Randall? I promise you there are teams that would give up value for Randall. I'm almost positive there are teams that would give up value for Randall because there are teams who
They
want,
just wouldn't mortgage their future for him.
yeah,
Like
they
he's a
wouldn't,
star.
yeah, they're
But,
not
like
going to
if
give
they
you,
like a team, like if you're Oklahoma City or someone and you have extra picks, like Randall and Shea could work, and if you still have 10,000 picks left, why not trade 2 first, right? That's just one example, but
yeah, and it's just like there was the Hawks last year traded 2 unprotected first and a protected first for DeJounte Murray. You're trying to tell me he's better than Julius Randle or so much better than Julius Randle? He should command something like
he's
that?
not better than
No,
Julius.
and like that's what I'm saying. So like there'll be a team that just wants to get better, and they'll be like, okay, we know we've sucked in the playoffs or whatever, but one, we need to get to the playoffs, and two, we can fix him. Like that's how all this works in the NBA. We can fix him. How many? You know what we can fix him does? We can fix him gets James Harden wherever the fuck he wants every time he wants to
Don't
get
save
traded.
him. He don't want to be
Yeah,
saved.
he doesn't want to be saved. James Harden wants to be fucking fat. He wants to do whatever the hell he wants to do. He wants to dribble 7 billion times and take 15 step back threes and choke
He
in
would
every big
fit in
moment.
well with the strip clubs in New York. So I'm told. Don't actually partake. Are actually quite. He'd do well in New York.
He would probably do well anywhere there are strip clubs, to be quite honest.
Not Utah.
Not Utah. Well, I don't know if they have strip clubs in Utah.
If they do, they're probably not a lot of fun.
They're probably terrible. Just a lot of. Yeah. Anyway,
probably bowling alleys with like.
But yeah, like I would give Quick that contract. I would like if I would give Grimes that contract whenever that his payday comes up. You know what I mean? Like I would give these guys those contracts because I think they're absolutely worth it, and I think they're young enough and have shown improvement enough that you would bet on them figuring shit out. Like I'm sorry, I will bet on him. Like I'll bet on Immanuel Quickley figuring out a way to make it happen for him in the playoffs because he's figured out shit throughout his career that people put a ceiling on.
But do you think if he's playing on the same team as Jalen Brunson and all these other mouths to feed and everything, do you think he will have the room to kind of figure it out in that sense?
I mean that
because you have talked a lot about how he gets 1 or 2 opportunities to run a pick and roll, it goes poorly, and then
that's kind of a coaching issue to me. Like that to me goes back to coaching more than it is, and that doesn't just affect him. Like Quickley has to work for his reps, but he does get on ball reps now. Like you look at this roster as it stands right now. Is Quentin Grimes getting any on ball reps that he?
Yeah, but Quickley's a lot.
But I'm
better.
saying he's had the chance to prove it because he came in. He like quickly benefited in some ways from the perceived or true, whatever you want to put it, but the lack of talent the Knicks had when he came in. Right, like he came in.
Do you think it helped him that Alfred was point guard?
Yes, I think it helped him. Alfred was point guard. I think it helped him that Dennis Smith Jr., who, congratulations to him, has kind of fought and scrapped his way into staying in the league. That Dennis Smith Jr. and Frank,
but it wasn't an established player.
Yeah, right? Yeah. That Dennis Smith Jr. and Frank Ntilikina were his competition.
Hey, respect Frank.
I will always respect Frank, but it helped him obviously, and like he took his opportunity. And yeah, of course they did trade for Derrick Rose, but he got opportunities to show what he could do with the ball in his hands in a way that, like, by the time we drafted Quentin Grimes the next year, that didn't exist because we signed Kemba Walker.
A much more talented on-ball player than Grimes.
He is, but you also would like think, like, how many pick and rolls did Quentin Grimes run last year?
I mean, when he did, they're not going to go over, and he can't punish them for playing him close.
I don't know that. I don't know that because you need reps to work that over. Like all I know is that when all of a sudden at the end of the year, when we give Quentin Grimes, this has happened twice now, where we all of a sudden it's like, oh, Quentin, just do whatever the fuck you want because everybody's sitting. He goes off. That's the only sample we have to work with that.
But it was still a lot of catch and shoot threes,
right? But that's
attacking closeouts.
But you're looking for him. But you're looking for him. He like those are opportunities that he can turn.
Well, that's I think that's its separate. Like, but you don't have to call stuff for him for guys to. They should always be looking for him, especially Brunson should be. Like that's the one guy they can't help off of, right? So,
I mean, that's just not how it works, though. Like, you have 3 guys that you're putting the ball in their hands a lot, like Randall.
But you need to spread them out.
RJ Brunson, Randall, RJ Brunson. Those guys have the ball in their hands a lot. Quickley gets the next amount, and like this is the thing that's funny to me is Quickley's usage was down last year. He was under 20 last year. He was at 19.9 his usage. So like the ability for other guys to even get reps is limited. And even Quickley, like, with Tibbs is a coach who, for better or worse, it's like, if you show me you can do it, then I will give it to you. But you have to show me. I'm not gonna give you the opportunities to like I'm not just gonna give you like 10 reps here just because I want you to have them. Like, no, I need to know that you can do this and it can help me in the services of winning this ball game. That's his standard for young guys. Obviously, that's not necessarily the case for vets, but that is what he does with young guys. Like a guy like Quentin Grimes is never going to have those opportunities. And as far as Quickley goes in the playoffs, like, he struggled initially, and that was it. Like, Tibbs basically pulled the plug on him. You can go look up the pick and roll ball handler fucking reps and touches and all that kind of stuff, all the tracking stuff. He basically just turned him into another off-ball guy and be like Quentin Grimes effectively. Whether that was right or wrong, and I do think that Tibbs was coming around to realizing he needed to dial him back up in that Miami series before he got hurt. I don't know, but I think to your question, like, I think that's about Tibbs. Like, Tibbs has to be more willing to extend his leash at times, and I do think, like, if he gets paid, I think that'll be part of the understanding there. And I also suspect Tibbs usually, like, look, man, once you get your contract, it's usually a different ball game for you with Tibbs. Like, RJ went from I yell at you all the time on the bench to, okay, not gonna say much to you. So yeah, I mean, Mitch, he basically, I mean, not that he really has to say much to Mitch anymore, but yeah, I don't know. To me, that's more of a Tibbs thing, and if that's a continued problem, I don't like, you know. Are you ever going to get a point guard, a backup point guard that, like, he would trust more than Quickley? I don't know. Seems like a high bar, because as much as I might not like some of the stuff he does with Quickley, I do think he trusts him. I do think he values him. He just, he does Tibbs things sometimes.
Yeah, no, I think it's I do think it's if you want to hit that high end outcome, the thing is this, right? I don't think it's a coincidence that his best game last season was against Boston, and it started off with him just pulling up from the logo, because he knew that there's nothing Tibbs is like. What's Tibbs gonna do? Bench him for Deuce? That's not gonna happen. I'm not making this a Brunson versus IQ thing or anything, but in the regular season, even off the bench, he had more freedom, right? I think you can, and like, I think this is the first year the Knicks actually had a worse offensive rating with Quickley on than off.
It says more about Brunson to me than anything.
It's a lot about Brunson. It also says a lot about the fact that about a third of the season, or a good chunk of the season, he was playing in those Sims-Hartenstein lineups off the bench, which was still pluses. And I'm not going to kill Tibbs for him, because Tibbs's idea was, let's play our two really good defensive bigs. Or Sims was actually maybe better at the four as a defender.
I mean, I'm not going to kill Tibbs for it either, because I kind of think
it should not happen this season. I'll say that.
It's kind of like, I won't kill Tibbs for it because I kind of find it hilarious, but that was,
it was a positive lineup.
Well, he also did that because, one, obviously Obi got hurt. But then the second reason is because he had basically decided that not Grimes, Fournier, Derrick Rose, and very, very specifically Cam Reddish were never allowed to play basketball again. So while, like, I think there are people that criticize him for that, I kind of do admire just the fact that he's like, no, you suck, dude. I'm good. Like, I don't want to play you anymore.
Yeah. But anyway, on offense, it hurt Quickley's offensive game and ability to do things. But I also, but when I think you've talked about this, and he has to, like, the thing is this, right? He is never, like, he's improved inside paint. He's never been going to be a guy who's inside out. The kind of guy he can be like is Mike Conley, who's like pull-up game developed. He had the floater, and that's the kind of game that Quickley can develop. That relies on, like, if they can't go under against you. If they go under and you don't fry them every time, That's a problem. That's just the same way that RJ is never going to be a guy whose pull-up shot is this primary thing. It's always going to be inside out. He has to be able to make good decisions when he drives. So it's the same thing. So when they go under, and he doesn't pull up, that's a big deal. When he doesn't have the freedom to fuck around a little bit and make some mistakes, but rely on his defense and adapt. And I just wonder, at that point, are you constricting him a little bit here? And is that something that he might feel? Or, are there ways to kind of tap into that more?
I mean, I would say that, like, we know that this is the thing, like, this is not unique to Quickley, by the way. Like, all players in the NBA and in any sport ever want to start. Like, all of them all have the goal to start, like, games, whatever they are. That doesn't mean that they absolutely have to start or they'll be miserable somewhere. Like, it will quickly be miserable and want out if he's not starting, but he routinely closes games and he's playing 27, 28 minutes a night or something like that. Like, I don't think so. Maybe I'm wrong, but I would think that, like, at least that is a path, right? To being like, okay, maybe this isn't exactly what I want, but I like being in New York. I like coming off the bench, or I'm fine coming off the bench because clearly I'm still valued, blah, blah, blah. If that changes where it's like you might not close, you're playing 20 minutes a night, like, yeah, I think that he would probably want out then. But right now, in this moment in time, I suspect that he would value but locking in money. Like, this is your time right now, not him, but a lot of these guys, right? When you after your third season, you can extend with your team. Like, a lot of guys are going to value, yes, I want to make as much money as possible, but, like, if I'm Leon Rose and I'm standing in front of you, Immanuel, Quickley, and I'm saying, I am ready to hand you a 5-year, $105 million, $110 million guaranteed. Hell, I'll give you a player option in the 5th year. Are you going to say no? I don't know.
The question is, would the Knicks want to go that high, and would they stick at like 4 for 90?
That's 21, 22 million. I think they'd go that high. That's like 4 or 5 million cheaper than RJ and Brunson and Randall. Like, I would be shocked if they wouldn't go that high for him. Especially because you could probably structure it in a variety of different ways. I do want to bring this up because I do think this is worth noting. This is from the stats from this season. Immanuel Quickley this past year, in his minutes without Jalen Brunson or RJ Barrett on the floor, 630 minutes. The Knicks had a plus 12.4 net rating. They had a 120.16 offensive rating in those minutes. Immanuel Quickley with Jalen Brunson on the floor. Those units were awesome again. They played 679 minutes, 9.7 net rating, 120.2 offensive rating. And then Immanuel Quickley with RJ Barrett, they played 741 minutes. They had a minus 1.76 net rating, 109.1 offensive rating. So, for whatever the case, and previously they have played well together before, and I know that RJ had a bad regular season, right, for whatever it is. So maybe that's just something that can bounce back next year. But for whatever it was last year, those minutes seem to be the primary driver of the offense was worse with him on the floor. The minutes with him and RJ. And I think this is worth noting too. RJ with Brunson, though, minus 3.8, but they did have a 120 point. They were basically 121 offensive rating with those two on the floor together without Quickley on. So the offense in a lot of ways just struggled in the minutes with Quickley and RJ. And sorry, I should mention Quickley, RJ, and Brunson. They only played 294 minutes, but they did have 120.7 net rate or offensive rating. So, like, for whatever reason, all those combinations worked offensively except for Quickley with RJ and no Brunson. So, yeah, I don't know. I would bet on a bounce back, I'm assuming RJ is here. I think this is going to be a roster for the entering the season. I would bet on those two together with Brunson off, figuring it out and at least playing at a better level collectively offensively. And so I'm not that worried about it. And, like, I've been critical of RJ regular season and I stand by everything I said there. But like, I'd be shocked if he had a regular season as bad as he did last year again. Like, I think he's going to bounce back. And whatever you think of his long term ceiling, whatever, I just can't imagine he'll struggle as much as he did at times in the regular season last year. I think he's going to have a much stronger regular season. I think that he will carry over some of the stuff from the playoffs. If nothing else, just moving better defensively. Fred Katz, I think he mentioned this on the KFS stream or whatever, that RJ had felt like the weight he lost towards the end of the season helped him move better. And that's something that he's focused on in the offseason. So I'm hopeful that he comes in, he looks a little bit more svelte, closer to what he was his first and second years in the league. That would be nice because I think that would help him a lot defensively. And I also think that would just help him in transition. Like, I really don't think he needed to bulk up to the level he has because he was bullying guys as a rookie. Like, he fucking, bullied his way to the rim on PJ Tucker as a rookie. PJ Tucker is a fucking huge dude who like shoves guys around the league. So I would bet that if he does come in and he is a little bit more, cut instead of being as thick as he was, he would benefit from it.
Very nice use of slang terms there.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, how much do you think? So when we're talking about RJ's playoffs, right? It's interesting to me because I think it was like it's always been this case. I think this is why he's had a lot of success against the Heat because they often, whether by design or not, they get a hero switched onto him, and he's always destroyed Tyler Hero. And one of the reasons why Brunson went off was that they started putting Vincent on him because they couldn't trust him on RJ. How much of his success do you think was based on him having smaller defenders on him? And look, like that's not necessarily a bad thing because he does have the kind of guard next to him that demands a big wing. Like there isn't like Brunson gave Drew Holiday 44. Yeah, his regular season. It's like kind of weird that we have to caveat.
Yeah, I mean, we all know how playoff Drew really steps it up.
Yeah, so like, but he's done that, and so Brunson is going to like in the playoffs they have to put their wings on him. Or they have to let him get 40. That's what Eric Spoelstra determined. I don't even know if Eric Spoelstra made the right choice. But it is notable that RJ's production went down once Brunson's went up. And I don't think it's because the Knicks prioritized. Well, I think it was in reaction to the fact that they were willing to live with Gabe Vincent on Brunson. So my question is, RJ dominated Garland. He dominated Vincent and Strus whenever they put him on him. How much does that affect kind of your evaluation of the playoff minutes? Like, how do you think about that going forward?
I guess I would say I don't really think he dominated those minutes against Miami.
But the most success he had was against Vincent.
Yeah, he had
Strus
success.
And Garland.
I
don't think he had the same kind of success against.
No. I want to be very specific. I don't think he dominated his minutes in the Miami series. Against Cleveland, he absolutely crushed it.
The beginning of the Miami series, he was good. I can pull up. The
stats. And I don't care about like the plus minus stuff in the playoffs with him is a little weird. I don't know what to make of it, to be honest.
He
plays
a lot with Julius Randle. Who was
he did, but like trust me, I've played with all the numbers. Like it doesn't matter what combinations you use. He was like somehow the most detrimental player, but I don't fully trust it because it just didn't look like that to me. Like quite honestly, I'll just say that. Like the regular season, I trusted it because I was like, yeah, that matches up with what I'm seeing. Like that makes sense. In the playoffs, it didn't match up with what I was seeing, so I don't fully trust it. I think maybe there's some noise there, small sample size stuff. But to go back to it, like the Cleveland series, I thought he dominated. I thought he was really, really good. I thought that was basically like that is the guy that you paid a 4-year, $107 million extension for. Like the way he played, I thought his defense was competitive throughout that series. His decision making, especially
so in the Miami series, he had
26,
really 24. So he had at least 24 points in 4 out of the 6 Miami games.
I know that, and
like the last one was shitty.
All I can tell you is that. All I can tell you is that I did not come away from that series thinking he dominated his minutes. Like, did he have some
He was
success?
good. Yeah,
For
that's
sure.
fair.
Yeah, for sure he had success. He was good. I thought basically the entire Knicks team fucking sucked whenever Brunson was on the floor. That's not an RJ specific thing. That's all of them. They all sucked when Brunson was on the floor in that series, which was different to me from the Cleveland series where I thought they managed to still have some success when Brunson was off the floor. If nothing else, I thought their defense held up in that series a little bit better, and that gave them a bit of an edge. But yeah, like I think with RJ, I mean, does it help that he plays next to Brunson? For sure it does. But like at the end of the day, like he just needs to make threes. Like I think the rest of it, like, yeah, he's not a 3-level scorer, is off the dribble game, blah. Like I think you can deal with all that. And like I think you can reasonably bet on, fucking doing like a Clockwork Orange with him, showing him the Cleveland series on repeat and being like, see, when you drive and 3 people are in the paint and you like kick it out, you see what happens?
The Strickland does not advocate torture.
Yeah, it's not torture. It's it's behavioral programming. But
Conversion therapy.
Yeah, conversion therapy. but like I think with that, that's a reason. I think those are all things I can live with. He cannot be a 25th percentile spot up shooter. That can't happen. That can't happen. It doesn't matter who he plays with. It doesn't matter any other. Like you can't be a wing or a guard. Like other than Jimmy Butler, there's nobody in the league that gets away with this shit. And even Jimmy, like, say what you want about him, but if he makes 1 or 2 threes, you already see how teams play him differently out there. Like RJ has to get to a level where, look, he doesn't need to be Ray Allen, but he's got to be like, look, we have the 140% year from 3, which if we're gonna do the Randall thing of like, well, Randall's 40% was fake.
What people will bring up is that a lot of those like RJ's better months were actually when there were fans in the stands, right? So.
Yeah, and that's fine. But it's the point being is like maybe that season was just a hot shooting season, like because we've got 3 seasons now, and I think this is worth noting. When he went 40% from 3, right? You can go back and find the quotes, but a lot of it was like, oh, like he's working really, really hard and he's tweaked his mechanics some, right? And remember, there was a huge thing about like, well, I actually tweaked my mechanics before my rookie year, but then fucking genius Coach Fizdale and genius Keith Smart had me switch back to like whatever the hell they wanted me to do. And that's why my percentage sucked. So I tweaked, like, so now I got a chance to go back to what I was working on and I shot 40%. Okay. And now we keep hearing these stories of like, oh, Drew Hanlon's like, oh, we tweaked something before the playoffs. We're tweaking this, we're tweaking that. And it's like, okay, but like the percentage is still not great. So ultimately, he's 22. I don't think the book is closed on him at all in terms of anything. I especially don't think the book is closed on him as a 3-point shooter. But the Knicks are good right now. And the East is not. I mean, forget the East. The league itself, I don't particularly feel is so. There's not to me some outlier dominant team that you could never imagine beating a series. This is not like you don't have like the fucking Durant. Yeah, you don't have the Durant Warriors are out there. You don't have the Heatles. You don't have this shit. Like you have really a bunch of really good teams, but no team that's so dominant. The question the Knicks have to ask, and I think this is really what they're balancing, because like, let's be real. RJ is your third option. I talked about this with Prez on Friday. If he's gonna, as long as he's here, he'll be the third option. So you need him to be at a certain level at that usage as a shooter. And if like he just needs to shoot better. And if he's not going to shoot better, they're a good team. They have a tough decision to make there. Like, do you keep faith in him or do you trade him out, try to bring in somebody who's a little bit older but more proven as a shooter? You maybe lose some upside with that. It's a hard thing they have to figure out here. And then, the other part that makes this tricky is nobody can be sold on Julius Randle as oh, yeah, he's definitely one of your top 3 guys right now. Like, in the regular season, I mean, even then, I think that's dicey given what we've seen from him. But, like, okay, fine, I can at least get there. In the playoffs, fuck no. Are you kidding me? Like, I understand he was injured and all that shit, but like, I'm sorry, man. You can tell me that that's a reason why you have faith in him to bounce back, but you can't. If I had made you bet your fucking life on something, like it'd be like, yeah, you had to bet your life savings on Julius Randle being a good playoff player. Nobody's fucking doing that. Like nobody's doing that. So I think those are the two big, really, really big questions. Like the other stuff to me, paying Quickley. Do we need a more skilled center? How do we do, like, what are we going to do with the backup for? Do we need a fucking bigger wing to, all those things are kind of small potatoes in relation to those two things. So, I don't know. I'm fine with where the Knicks are at. I think it actually is kind of, it's nice that the expectations were where they were going into last season, because the season they had now enables them in some ways to give this another shot, because they did have success with it. Obviously, they did get it the second round, which is the most successful season the Knicks have had since 2013. I think giving this another shot is okay, because let's see what this team does next year. Let's see if RJ Barrett can't have a breakout 3-point shooting season at age 23. That's not exactly the most insane thing that's ever happened, right? Let's see if Julius Randle, let's see if we can get back to the playoffs, right? Be an automatic playoff team. And then let's see how Julius Randle performs in those playoffs. Hopefully he won't have a serious ankle injury that he re-aggravates that clouds the kind of image of it all. So, and I think tied to this RJ thing is this question, this comment that we got in the comments. Thank you to John Zigner. Hopefully pronouncing that properly. Do we need to acquire an all-NBA player prior to Brunson's contract renewal, or do we keep faith we can draft and continue to get good free agent acquisitions? Seems to be artificial clock on us making a move. Stacey, what are your thoughts? I do think that ties into RJ, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, the question is, they already have another all-NBA player. Can that all-NBA player show up in the playoffs? We don't know a lot of stuff, because as much as I don't want to make excuses for Randle, it was really his second playoff series. He was hurt. Like, as excuse the defensive thing, can you win? I think the bigger thing is that it's a good defensive. It's not a bad defensive team. I know they finished 19th. I think they played well on defense, but their three best players, none of them has shown good defense. These are the questions I'm more focused on than getting another star, to be honest. Like, can they get a viable second creator in the playoffs? Is that Quickley? Is that RJ? Is that Randle? I don't know. But I think that person could exist on the roster. Does one of the young players take a leap? It's probably one of Grimes, RJ, or Quickley, but who knows? Maybe it's someone else.
Sims.
What? I was gonna say Deuce, but Deuce.
It could be Keels. It could be Keels.
I think the one thing I'm comfortable saying is that it won't be Keels. But those are the questions. So my question is, do they need to? I don't know. You're making a bet on the improvement, and that's why when people talk about, they're not doing it, they're not building the right way, they're taking shortcuts. It's like, no. If anything, they probably could have sold high or sold at whatever they were at on this young core a long time ago. They could have traded RJ and said, we don't want to pay you. We want to keep our cap low, keep an opportunity open, and get more picks, right? Maybe somebody would have given up picks for RJ. But, they have repeatedly said, we're going to build and develop this core. They've prioritized draft and developing. And the fact that they traded away 2 picks that weren't going to play really the last 2 years, I don't think matters that much in that conversation. So the question is, do you keep betting on that improvement? And these guys, Quickley, Grimes, RJ, Mitch, are we reaching the plateau? If you think that's what it is, then you consolidate. If you think that no, that like there's a good chance that one of those guys becomes like a star on a good contract, then you keep. And as far as there's a gray area, I think my answer to that is, I think if it's a no-brainer, and yeah, I think where I disagree with Schwinn is, I think Joel Embiid would be that kind of no-brainer. They would do it. But
I think they'd do it. They would do it.
I don't think a guy like Donovan Mitchell is that. I don't think they're going to do it for like the worst All NBA player.
Yeah, can we just say this? Donovan Mitchell is not better than Jalen Brunson. Like, he's not. I'm sorry, he's just fucking not.
Is he better than Tyrese Halliburton?
Probably, but like I'm sorry. Like I had to listen. I was listening to the low pod last week, and they were talking about like, oh, well, maybe like, look, he's probably not better than Donovan Mitchell, obviously, and it's like, why? What is the reasoning? Is it because you didn't make an All-Star team? Did he make an All-NBA team? Great. All I know is 2 years in a row he's busted Donovan Mitchell's ass. Had that absolutely fucking cut him up. He's performed better on a playoff stage than him for 2 years running. This is not just one series. It's not just a couple games. These are 2 straight series where he's absolutely destroyed him. And to the people that were like, I've seen people being like, well, the Cavs' depth is terrible and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Well, if the Cavs' depth is terrible, I think it's safe to say the Knicks' depth defensively, very, very good. They did not play particularly great against Cleveland offensively. And then the other part of it is like, okay, then can we stop talking about like Cleveland's amazing top end talent then? Like, I don't know. Is it depth? Is it top end talent? I don't know. But Donovan Mitchell, not better than Jalen Brunson. Sick of hearing it. Best thing we did was not mortgaging the future and trading out a bunch of picks and all that shit for Donovan Mitchell. I don't know where Stacy went. Stacy is using the little boys' room. So I'm just going to keep talking about stuff. Yeah, I tend to agree with Stacy as far as we need a second creator. I guess I'm just a little bit more apprehensive that that's on the roster, or that, more importantly, going back to John's question, that you can wait. Like, I don't know that you can wait to see if your second creator is still on the roster beyond this upcoming season. I think
it depends who's. Yeah, I agree. But I also agree it depends on who you can actually get back, right?
Yeah, like, so you can't ever force it. Like, if a guy's not there, he's not there. Like, you can't be like, well, it doesn't fucking matter if this person's not worth it. He's the best that's out there, so let's just trade a bunch of shit for him. No, you can't do that. But I do think it's reasonable to expect a true star, superstar, or whatever you want to call it, to become available on the market over the course of the next season. The bet you have to make is, or the question you really have to ask yourself is, as this season goes on, this upcoming season goes on, is, are you seeing enough signs from the guys we mentioned, and you can include Randall in that mix too, though regular season Randall, we know, has been different than playoff Randall, but like guys like RJ, Quick, Grimes, those 3 specifically, has any of them made a leap so significant as a creator that you would pass on the opportunity to add, say, somebody like a Paul George, who they've been connected to a bunch this offseason? Obviously that depends on cost and all kinds of things, but it also depends on what you think of your internal talent and the way they're trending. And so, yeah, it's a tough question. And I think that's kind of why I'm okay with them not taking a big swing on the guys that are available, or at least seem to be available this offseason. Obviously, Damian Lillard makes no sense with Jalen Brunson. I don't think it makes sense to give up the value that apparently the Clippers are looking to get for Paul George. I have absolutely no desire to do much to get James fucking Harden. So I'm okay with passing on
Harden.
But like, it's all fine to want that player, but it has to be the right guy, and it has to be the guy that makes sense. And like, to this point right here. So how about that Joel Embiid guy? Obviously the Knicks, they're going to get connected to him constantly. He made a comment, I don't know when exactly it was, but about he doesn't know if he just wants to win. He doesn't know if it'll be in Philly or elsewhere. We know the Harden thing is looming over their offseason, which I find interesting. It feels like Daryl Morey maybe has, backed himself into a corner here. I'm not sure he can extricate himself from. Is Joel Embiid that guy? I have reservations about that, but you would say, at least in a vacuum, to me, he's at least a lot more worthy of taking that risk for than a Donovan Mitchell. That's just my feeling about it. Especially given you have Brunson now, like I don't really understand. I didn't want to do the Mitchell thing last year, in part because I don't really I just didn't understand the fit with Brunson at all. And I think we saw some of that in the Cleveland series as far as how it worked for Cleveland. But whenever I think of Embiid, there's just a version of Embiid if he can ever be healthy at the right time in the playoffs. If he's, all these kind of things where I get it. The talent is prodigious. He is absolutely an elite player. Can he just be an elite player at the time you need him to be one? I don't know. He hasn't done it yet. And I do think it's worth noting. I think this is actually very relevant. Philly has struggled for a long time, for as long as Embiid's been there, with that Boston team. That has multiple, they have Jaylen Brown, they have Jason Tatum, 2 elite wings, very perimeter-oriented team. They've struggled to beat them, to overcome them at various points. If you trade for Embiid, you better fucking have a strong idea of how you are now going to overcome the same problem that his teams in Philly have had. Because I do think that is personnel related in terms of the matchups. And I do think that this swarming that Boston team can do defensively with their various wings and, even Derek White, like he's a fucking big ass guard, dude. That dude is like a wing, basically. Obviously they don't have Smart now, but they still have Brogdon, they'll have KP, whatever. But the teams that they have faced prior to now have had a lot of wings and guards, and they've swarmed and they've made life hard for him. I don't know if that's specifically going to be a problem against Boston moving forward, but that has been a problem that Joel Embiid has had, and that's something that you need to consider if you do make that big swing on a player like Joel Embiid.
So is there anything that's untouchable for the Knicks, or where would you not go on that trade?
Sorry, say that again.
What is a price too high
for Joel Embiid?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm always more risk averse with this stuff, but I just hate the idea of going like 3 future firsts, 4 future firsts for a guy, and fucking players, and it's just hard to know what.
If it was 4 future firsts, but we kept Quickley, Grimes, and RJ, you still wouldn't do it.
So Randall's going out.
Yeah, Randall would have to go out, I think, to make the salaries. To make it there's no way Randall can't go out, and we're not trading Brunson. So,
I think I'd probably be okay with doing that, just because I
Randall 4 firsts. I don't think you have to include Fournier at that point, but
this is why trading for Joel Embiid it's just very difficult for me to answer this, because if you do that trade, okay, then now you got to trade Mitch. Like, so where are we trading Mitch? What are we getting back? It's just really, really hard to know. Like, if you told me right now, Joel Embiid's in the market, right? Say Daryl Morey calls you up, we're ready to talk. Okay. I think Mitch has to go out in that trade. And if it's Randall, that's fine. But now you've got a huge fucking hole at the 4. How are you feeling that? And this is why I get nervous about trades where it's like, give all of it up to get the guy, because you got to get the guy. And it's like, okay, I have the guy now. How do I build this team around this guy? Like, I'm sorry, like this Suns fucking thing that's going on, and everybody's like, oh, look, they get the best minimum guys. Oh. Okay, they're fucking minimum guys. Like, I'm sorry, like you got the best, you got the smallest.
They have Bull.
Yeah, Bull.
It's a game changer.
Yeah. All right. Bull is a meme. He's fun, but come on. Like, I don't love. I look at the situation they're in. Right? They traded out all their picks. They trade out Mikal Bridges. They trade out Cam Johnson. Okay, so now
they haven't traded out all their picks. That's part of it. It's like they've relied on swaps and they've done some interesting stuff, but it's not your typical empty the shelf.
What they're doing is fucking crazy. By the way, they're just like mortgaging. They're taking out like a mortgage on their mortgage. It's fucking nonsense what they're doing. Trading out pick swap. You're trading out like, they're
making a CDO made up of other CDOs.
Yeah, they basically are. They're trading like. So they already swapped those picks with Washington, and now they're trading the lesser swaps to get like these shitty second round picks. that like have no chance of being anything other than like late seconds. It's look, I mean, it's the strategy they've chosen. I don't think it's wise, and I don't think it's to me stuff like that just makes me queasy. Where I'm like, okay, you have to win a championship in the next 2-3 years in that situation, and like if you start going down that path, that's the situation you're in. And like, I know this sounds stupid, but like, I mean, I think you guys mentioned this on your pod with Miranda, but like,
Thank you for listening.
yes, of course, and everybody should be listening, but like, I'm okay with the Knicks not being a championship contender right this second. Like, I'm okay if they're stuck in the middle for right now. Like, I'm fine with that because I like this team. I like the guys in this team. I have fun rooting for them. You know, whether yes, do I have moments where I get super annoyed with like RJ and Mitch and Julius and whoever? Like, yeah, absolutely, I do. But like in general, I like rooting for this team. I like the guys in this team. I think they carry themselves well. I like the fact that it feels like for the first time, I don't have to worry that at some point I'm gonna get a Woj bomb of like, this person was like doing something insanely stupid. Like more to come, details to come later. Like I don't need to worry about shit like that. And I like that. I'm fine with waiting. I'm fine holding off for the right guy. And to me, like Joel Embiid, maybe he's that guy. Maybe he is. Maybe I'm wrong. But I can't get my mind out of the like get away from the fact the guy can't get out of the second fucking round. I'm sorry. Like I can't. To me, that's a fucking seems like a really big problem. Like you can't get to a conference finals. You know, like that seems very problematic to me. If you're not good enough to do that, like, and yes, you can tell me all the circumstances and all the shit. The guy had a game 6 on his floor this year. You win, you go to the Eastern Conference Finals. He's the MVP, right? He spent a whole fucking year crying about not getting the MVP award and all this shit. You had the chance to justify it on your
That
home
was
floor.
more his trainer than
that was him too. He had a whole fucking thing in the Athletic where he's talking about I play defense and all this shit. Get the fuck out of here. Like you had a chance to do it. Okay, you lose that game. You go to game 7. Did he show up? Was he on the floor? Did he do fucking anything in that game? At any point in that game, did he take kind of stock of the situation and be like, man, it's time for me to like, if we're gonna go down, it's gonna be, I'm gonna go down swinging. Like, and this was not some like Kobe fucking game 7 against Phoenix next level chess move or something where he's like, I'm just gonna throw this one to make a point to Phil. Like, no, this was just him disappearing in the moment. I'm sorry, that stuff really worries me. Like we shit on Randall for this all the time. We've shit on Randall for this, right?
Yeah, but
like,
Randall doesn't play defense either.
Was Embiid playing defense in that game? I must have missed it.
I think it was a lot better than anything I've seen from Randall.
I don't know, man. They were hunting him in that game. I saw them hunting Joel Embiid in that game. I saw them trying to get Tatum switches onto Joel Embiid. Like, I'm not saying that's an easy cover for him, but you're you had your chance to make an impact in the game. You just disappeared. Like, I'm sorry. Like, to me, that's very, very worrying. Like, even the comment he made today is worrying to me. It's like he's divorcing himself from responsibility from the situation. I just want to have a chance to win. Okay. You want to fucking do something about it, pal? Huh? You want to fucking maybe stop sucking down Shirley Temples? That's all you can do? I think he's actually stopped doing that. But like, there are very few guys to me that are actually worth these type of gigantic all-in type of trades that we're talking about. And like, it also like if for example, if RJ took a leap this upcoming season, right? And now we're like talking about a guy that's hovering around that like all-star or at least just really, really good two-way wing, right? Like maybe not quite an all-star every year, but could get in the mix 2 or 3 or 4 times, whatever, right? I think at that point you might be comfortable. I would be a lot more comfortable than trading for Joel Embiid because it's like, okay, I have my guard, I have my wing, let me get my big guy, and we can go. I'm more not having a second guy that I'm like, yes, that's our second guy. That makes it also a lot more.
Well, that's Brunson, right?
I'm saying like not having a second guy in the roster as is right now, who could be your third, I guess, if you get Joel Embiid.
I see. So,
Yeah.
but well, so if you don't believe that RJ or Quickley, like we need to see that first.
Yeah, I mean, I would personally want to do that. I understand that like what Shwinny Poo wants from his couch, not having to worry about like the pressures of keeping my NBA front office job and answering to James Dolan is a lot easier for me to have that stance. So like sometimes you got to take the risk without knowing, right? You got to take a leap of faith. Otherwise, you might die like an old man filled with regret. But yeah, like that's just me though. I don't know. I have a really tough time answering those questions because I don't think it's as simple as like, well, would you trade for Joel Embiid? Like, yeah, sure, in the right scenario. Like to me, there's maybe 3 guys that I'd just be like, doesn't really matter to me what the cost is. You just trade for him. It's like Jokic, Giannis. I don't even think you can say this about Luka yet. So maybe it's just those 2 guys right now. Like obviously prime LeBron would have been one. You know, prime Steph, but Steph is 35 now. Like you can't do that.
You wouldn't do it for Steph right now?
It's too old, man. It just worries me. The age stuff. Like what am I doing? Like I'm gonna get Steph, then I have trade Brunson. I got to do all these things. I got to do.
Yeah, that's also he's a guard. The same reason Dame shouldn't be.
Yeah, this is I fucking hate Miami because it's like perfect for them. This is like the perfect guy that could come available on the market, right? Oh, we have Jimmy Butler. Oh, we have Bam. All we need is like this fucking nuclear shooting guard. And who all of a sudden comes to the market is Damian Lillard, who apparently is like, I have to go to Miami. Trade me to Miami. I don't run from the grind unless it's on South Beach.
Yeah, he meant a different kind of grind.
Yeah, I mean, that's just how, I don't know. You probably feel much differently than I do about this, though.
No, I think Portland should tell Dame to fuck himself.
No, not that. No, that I think we both agree on. But with regard to Embiid, I meant.
I think I agree with you. I think that next year, that is probably when they're I think that makes sense. Like next year or midway through the season, maybe at the earliest. Next year is when they have to be like, especially if Grimes and Quickley and RJ are just nice players who don't get you there, there's still something missing. They'll have to look at it. If Randall is still the same player, right? Very good in the regular season, but a defensive liability and can't score efficiently in the playoffs. I do think, having one more year matters. And then also, if you get that guy, right? Here's the other thing. Do you think there's any chance, because of the relationship Brunson has with the Knicks front office and his dad being on the staff and all of that, let's say they get a guy and it would help them for Brunson to, opt in for a year, and they're like, well, like kind of what happened with Josh Hart, right? Like, wink, wink, opt in. We are all assuming that Josh Hart's going to get an extension. Even if that doesn't happen, you can assume Brunson would have that kind of cachet. Do you think there's any chance, like how much wiggle room would that give the Knicks if there's something that could happen that summer?
You mean next summer?
No, well, he can't opt out next summer, right? He would opt out the year after that.
Embiid, right? You're saying?
No, Brunson.
Sorry, Brunson. Yeah, no.
I'm talking about the kind of time limit that we have. I think that's a big point that a lot of people are making.
Can we just be real about the Brunson thing, where it's like, yeah, I know he can opt out and all this shit, but like, do we really think that? Like, nobody's worried about this for real, right? Like, we're all, like Brunson's we'll probably figure that out and get that squared away. Like,
well, that's what I'm saying. Do you think he would opt in for a year like Josh Hart if we say we'll give you an extension like almost immediately, just have it kick in the year afterwards? And
maybe. I mean, maybe. I think there's maybe a potential. Maybe Leon lets him know that, hey, don't worry. Look at my will. I left you a little extra piece that I wasn't planning on doing. I'm just very unconcerned about the Brunson piece because I do
Because
think
it
they'll
looks
figure
like
some-
that's what happened with Hart, right? Like him opting in. So
Yeah, I mean, Hart's a little bit different. Like, I don't. There was this whole thing of like, oh, like, who was bidding up for Josh Hart? Honestly, like, the guy is really good, but it's like he's a wing who doesn't quite shoot the three that well. You know, it was a weird thing where I'm like, I don't really see the market for
he's
him.
undersized, right?
Yeah, he's undersized. So I don't know if that's the same. I don't even know what the other thing is. I don't know what they could extend Brunson at. Like, I don't know what his number is because with Hart, he has a max extension of 40 years, 81 million now that he can take after the opt-in. So it's 140%. Your first year salary can be 140% of what your previous year. So like if Brunson opts in, then they can give him a extension at 140% of whatever that number is. It would start at 140. 100. I can't imagine that he would do that because 140% of, I think that year is like 24 or something. I can look it up right now, but I mean, what's 140% of 24? It's like 32.
Yeah.
It's not taking an extension starting at 32 because he's worth more than that, you know? That one's a little tough for me to see. Yeah, the player option is 24.9, so 25 basically. It's a little bit more, say 33 and a half, whatever. I don't know. A 4-year extension starting at 33 and a half is what, like, this probably ends up being like 140, 145, 150 million, something like that. Is that something that you would do? I mean, I would do that. I would be very interested in that. If Leon wants to give me $150 million, I'm down. But is that something that Brunson would do? Or is that something that Brunson would be comfortable with?
So as the cap gets bigger, these kind of differences also get bigger, right? So
yeah, it's. I mean, I would gladly give him that extension. I think the Knicks would gladly give him that extension. It's just
yeah,
like,
would you give? But he could probably get.
yeah.
Well, at that point, we're assuming if he keeps doing this for 2 more years, especially the second half of last season, he'd probably be eligible for 4 for 200 or something. Right? So.
Yeah, he'd look at 40+ mil a year. So yeah, that's just me. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of, I think that'll sort itself out. But you know, the Knicks do have to. I think the Randall part is a lot more tricky than the Brunson one because this is kind of why I have, I said I would trade Randall if it was up to me this offseason because this is his peak trade value as far as I'm concerned. You're getting 2 years left on his contract. He's just coming off an All NBA season, his second one. I don't know. I would consider trading him, but I get why they didn't. I don't think it's an unreasonable choice. I think it's a very tricky thing, and yeah, we'll see where it goes from there. I do want to mention that there is a situation brewing north of the border. Pascal Siakam apparently doesn't want to get traded, and he won't extend anywhere he's traded to. My theory on this is that he actually doesn't give a shit about staying in Toronto necessarily, but he wants to play out the year there. If he gets all NBA, he would become Supermax eligible, I believe, for Toronto and only Toronto. He's only Supermax eligible if he stays in Toronto. And I think either way, he's going to hit the unrestricted market. That's what I think he wants. And so I think he's putting out there that he's not interested in extending with anybody else purely because of that. Now, whether a team would call his bluff and trade for him anyway and be like, well, once he can't get the Supermax because he can't get it once he gets traded, we'll give him a max extension. He'll take it. I don't know. But we know that Toronto hasn't offered him a max extension yet, which apparently is a point of contention. But if they haven't offered it to me yet, maybe they know that he wouldn't take it because he wants to play out this year and see if he can get the Supermax.
Yeah, enter unrestricted free agency. So.
Yeah, and he'll be the best free agent on the market because DeJounte Murray extended, so there's really no competition for that. Like, it'll be Pascal Siakam.
Also, DeJounte Murray isn't very good.
Agreed. I'm very curious about Pascal because I think him and Randall, like, it's really funny their resume is basically the same. Like they both have 2 All NBAs, they both have 2 All-Star appearances, they both won Most Improved Player at one point in their careers.
I mean, one of them has a ring.
Yeah, I mean, one of them played Kawhi, which is nice.
Didn't Randall never played with Randall played with Kobe?
I mean, really? Did he play with Kobe or did he play with like the memory of Kobe? He also did he like broke his leg like 7 seconds into that. It is funny to look
Kobe in his Players Tribune articles.
It is funny to look back at like Kobe's 60-point game, his last game of his career. It's like all those like random Lakers on the team.
Yeah, was it like Jordan Clarkson and was Lonzo on the team or
No, he wasn't.
Before Lonzo.
Yeah.
Jordan Clarkson definitely was, right?
D'Lo was on the team.
Yeah.
Randall. I think Nance was on the team.
Yeah, they draft well.
Yeah. They still do. They got Austin Reeves undrafted.
They got Max Christie looking good. I actually liked him last year too. But yeah, I think talent identification has been strong for the Lakers for a while.
Yeah, I don't know. This Pascal thing is interesting to me because I just wonder, like, I wonder if there'll be more players that do this, and also, I mean, it's not just there, right? Like, I think there's also a hang up now with the Jaylen Brown thing in Boston is interesting to me too because, like, why isn't he signed a Supermax extension? But to go back to the Toronto thing, the reason why I find it interesting, is because it's something I'd be interested in. No, it's because OG Anunoby is also sitting there. He also, to my knowledge, has not either been extended he's not been offered an extension, and I don't think he has any interest in taking an extension because why would he? He can probably get more on the market than a 4-year, $117 million extension, and I think he believes there's an opportunity if Siakam gets traded for him to be the second option and get the type of usage and on-ball stuff that he wants and maybe net himself a bigger payday. But this is also, funny enough, the reason I think Pascal and OG are interesting is their like markets in terms of trade markets are kind of nuked because Pascal's putting out there, right, that I'm not going to extend anywhere or whatever. So if I'm a team trading for him, it's like, well, why am I trading for this guy? He doesn't want to fucking extend anywhere. And then, so I'm risking him going out in free agency. Somebody's going to give him a max fucking offer because he's the best guy out there. And there's a bunch of fucking cap space out there to be given now. Like somebody's going to give him max. This is why OG is so weird to me because there are people that really want to trade for him. And I understand that, even if I disagree with some of it. But like when I see stuff like trade Quickley and Fournier in 2 picks or trade RJ in 2 or 3 picks, I'm like, what are we doing? Like if you do that, you're telegraphing to the market, like, hey, look at how much value I gave up for this guy. Now there's all this pressure. You have to keep that player, right? And all it takes is one team coming in being like, we'll give him a max. And now it's like, okay, well, shit, do I have to give him a fucking max now? Like, is he like, that's it? That's the only way he's going to stay? So I think both these guys have nuked their trade market. Like, what is the argument in trading for OG Anunoby at this point, especially at the type of ask that Masai has?
Yeah, it's a weird situation. Do you think Masai backs down? I think that's the only kind of reasonable thing that could happen.
I think he will trade Pascal. I don't think he's going to trade OG.
So he'd rather trade Pascal and pay OG than pay Pascal and get pennies on the dollar for OG.
Well, the tell is like Scotty Barnes, right?
What do you mean?
Like Pascal and Scotty Barnes make absolutely no sense together. Right? Like neither guy.
I mean, OG's like, but OG isn't that like he can shoot. Yeah. So I mean, Pascal Siakam's not a bad shooter. He's just best with the ball in his hands, but OG wants the ball in his hands. So don't you run into the same problems at that point?
Right, but he would be if you get rid of Pascal, then Fred's gone. So like he is your second option, probably, sadly.
Yeah, that's not really a great position to be in unless you got a haul for Pascal, right?
It's not, but this is what I imagine Masai is going to do. Like, Just
And
can't
where do
see
you
him not doing
think
it this way.
where does he go? Right, like I think Portland's always been an interesting place, but does a Pascal for a Dame trade work? Do you need to find a third team? I don't know.
I think OKC would be fun.
If that's Pascal and the spacing might be maybe yourself said today, right?
Yeah, but
SGA
we got your boy.
sucks
We got
and
your.
is
We
the
got
worst,
your. Yeah, he's
the
the worst
player
player
ever because
Yeah.
he can't. Well, would you worry about the spacing at that point? Is actually the real. I mean, it'd be fun if he was with
Yes,
Chet, maybe.
I would worry about. I would worry about the spacing, but I also
And they'd still have.
there's not a lot of
picks.
evidence over the years that Sam Presti cares too much about spacing, or at least to the point that he. I think he's one of those. Give me the talent.
But that's been when they're tanking,
Guys.
right? But I think that they did. I mean,
No, when they had Russ and KD, look at some of those teams, man. He never prioritized going out and getting shooters. Like if you actually think about it,
I think he couldn't find two-way players. He was in a lot of the same.
He could have gone J.R. Smith and Shumpert. At the same deadline, the Cavs got J.R. Smith and Shumpert.
Yeah, but
He chose to get penis cancer and what's his name?
Didn't he get like Alex Abrinas though? Like he was more of a shooter than certainly Shumpert and Smith was. I think
Alex Abrinas hadn't proven anything, and like my point is he never valued getting those 3-and-D wings. He's never valued the spacing, right?
Those are you can say the same about Leon
Adams.
Rose because they're just not easy to get, right? I mean,
no, but Leon Rose is clearly valued shooting. Presti is like look at the. I mean, yeah, you can say the draft.
I mean,
right?
I would say my point is kind of like Ibaka that they clearly had the vision for him to be a stretch 5 or stretch 4 even for a long time, whereas a lot of other GMs might have developed him more as a paint bound guy, right? I think with Westbrook, your spacing is always compromised, but that's fair. Like you can say that I don't think they had many opportunities to add a true impact 3-and-D wing. They traded a guy who was 6'5" and a pretty good shooter, and that didn't work out as well. But they traded him. They got Lamb back. I don't necessarily know that I agree with
Jeremy Lamb hype. Doing Jeremy Lamb hype now
with the idea that Presti wouldn't care about spacing.
I think he cares about spacing, but I also think he's a talent. Like to me, he's
talent first.
Yeah, he's like later. Give me the talent, and then I'll figure out how to get my shooters and all that stuff. Like Maury's like that too. He's talked about this openly, where he's just like, give me the stars, and I'll just figure it out around the stars, which is going really well for him in Philly. He's figured out a lot. Pascal's just I don't really see the clean fit for him that of a team that would really give a value for him. Like the Bulls would actually be interesting, but what are they giving up? Like you're gonna do Levine? But like, why would the Raptors want Levine? I don't know.
Oh, it's a replacement for Fred. Nice shooter to pair with Scotty.
You sound really convincing.
No, I mean, I don't know that there are a lot of good. Well, I think that could work, and I actually do think Scotty Barnes next to Levine would be good, right? Somebody to co-handle the ball, but also be a shooting threat. Would Siakam work in San Antonio? Something around like who is there?
Sohan,
Keldon Johnson. That's what I was thinking of, and a few firsts.
That would be an interesting.
Siakam Wemby front line would be interesting. Do you have the guard play to complement it? I don't know, but they have Wemby on a rookie deal. Yes, number 1 pick money, but still, they have some flexibility there.
Yeah, they'd be interesting. I think that the Pacers have been connected with them. That one is so odd to me though, because it's like they just traded for Obi. They also drafted Jarris Walker, who
I don't think trading 2 seconds for Obi constrains them.
No, it doesn't. It's just like what is Obi going out in the trade? If not, did you just trade is he? So then you're going to trade Jarris? Like I don't understand. I'm not just not sure about any of that. Where's the fit there? That one is just odd to me, and I don't. If I'm the Pacers, I'm not really interested in. I don't know. Again, I know this next draft is not highly valued, so I think they're going to be pretty decent. Regardless, I think they're going to be a pretty solid team.
Are you saying you think Tyrese Halliburton's a good player?
Yes, I do think he's a good player. I also think he's a whiny fucking loser.
Way to be a flip-flopper.
Yeah, I know. But, what, they have Halliburton, they have Healed,
I
They
think
got-
Mathurin will take a leap too.
Yeah, I like Mathurin. I think people are actually sleeping on Mathurin a little bit weirdly, just because it's like he kind of got
He's-
out to such a hot start that I almost feel like it's like, all right, now, like everybody moved on to like the next thing. I think he's going to be really good. I still
He's
think
a little bit of a one-trick pony, but he's an advanced shooter for a young player.
he's also just
and-
so fucking athletic.
Yeah. Well, that's the
He-
thing. But like, yeah, like that's a good combo. And like his defense wasn't great last year, but
Their entire
it's
team's
definitely it
defense
was better
sucks.
than I expected. What?
They have like one good defender on the team. It's like Miles Turner. They have a second one now because they
You
drafted.
don't
Jarvis
buy
Walker.
Halliburton's all the steals he gets and all of that. It's
I only buy Halliburton stock. You know, to support
yeah,
my
like
country.
buying Halliburton stock like it's February 2003, right?
But yeah, like I think their roster is like good. Like it makes sense. I don't think they're going to defend very well at all, but they're fast. They're athletic. They're going to get a bunch of fucking threes up. They're going to be a tough team to cover in transition. Carlisle knows how to coach everybody up. I don't. What am I doing, Siakam? You know, like Atlanta keeps getting rumored. I'm like, what the fuck would I want from Atlanta if I'm Toronto? I want DeAndre Hunter.
Oh, we've
No.
got some feedback here on so Coach CR617, thanks for the comment, says maybe they can trade Pascal to GS for Wiggins.
Why would the Warriors do that? Because they already have serious cap issues, which is the main reason why they dumped the Poole contract. So you'd have to.
That'd be fun though. It's Pascal,
Yeah.
Draymond, Steph, and Clay, and
Yeah, but it
Moody.
would. But then you also have to like pay him a shit ton next summer when you all. I mean, their owner already came out and said they want to make sure Clay retires there for life. Look, he's not going to make $43 million ever again in his career in a single season. But Pascal would be fun. I mean, he would make a lot of sense there. I just don't think they do it. Like
what about Pascal for Cat? Something around that. Because Toronto does. If you have all these good wing defenders,
I like that. I actually think that might work for both. Because Cat, Toronto would need to believe Cat can work at the 4 next to Pirtle.
I don't even know if I'm envisioning this between like him next to Scotty and OG, and so he helps them with like them not being the best spacing combo, and they help him with being able to have good perimeter. Like I think you need to
like
surround
play
him with,
defense.
Yeah, exactly right. Which I mean, Minnesota's trying to do that. They have Jaden McDaniels, obviously tried to surround him with, but like the idea of that, like you have to like Cat has to play the rim protector role, which he's not. That's not his worst quality, by the way. His worst quality is like doing literally anything else on defense. But if you surround him with switchy guys, then he can just be, if you watched Michigan last year, Hunter Dickinson, and just be big and be at the rim. And this isn't college, and in the playoffs, it still hurts. But that's where you need it to work. But it's also like that is the kind of team that can benefit most from like a spacing 5, right? So, and if it's Pirtle like that's in the way, then fucking trade him. Trade him for like I don't know Jordan Poole or something. I don't. Well, you probably want a good defender, so trade him. But you can trade him for like DeAnthony Melton or something, right? So that bad example. They have 10,000 bigs on their roster. But the point is, you can turn Pirtle into something else even if you don't believe that.
Right, but
it's
for
not really good Bears contract.
Right, but for the time being, you'd have to be in on the idea of them playing together, which is I mean, I think it's too soon to declare the. I think the Rudy Gobert trade is a disaster. But I think it's too soon to declare that Cat and Gobert together isn't functional. Like I think they can probably function together, not at a championship level, which is why that trade is a mess.
It's also,
but
the other thing is if your best player is Anthony Edwards is a really good pull-up shooter, but you want him attacking the rim. That's another kind of complication there, right? Like, is a lineup with Ant and Gobert ever going to be more than the sum of its parts? It's tough for me to see that. I mean, worked with Donovan Mitchell, but I don't know.
Yeah, I just like the idea of Pascal in Minnesota a lot. So if they can't get picks, from Toronto's case, like if you can't get picks, then it would just be worth it. But again, we run into this problem in Minnesota. Minnesota has cap issues, And so like they're going to have a bunch next summer. Do they really want to have to deal with paying Pascal a new long-term contract next summer when they already
paying Cat $60 million or whatever it is?
Yeah, I mean they are, but they're going to be adding whatever. I mean Pascal's a 36 right now, I think. So he's probably wants at least 45, maybe 50.
Yeah, but that's still better than what you're sending out.
It's still better, but it's like I don't know. That one to me is still.
So you think if they trade Cat, it'd be more likely for expiring contracts and picks?
No, I don't know. Maybe they would do it just because he's probably the best player you could potentially get for Cat. I can't imagine another team giving you a 4 that makes at least some sense. Like the spacing is a little.
They want Dame, but
yeah, I mean,
I
don't think Portland would do that.
Cat for Dame. I mean, Cat next to Simons, they're gonna have up 150 points.
Can't next to any of those guys, man. Fucking Shaedon Sharp's not defending anybody right now either.
Yeah, but they would be fun on offense. Like,
they'd be fun on offense.
5 out would be pretty unstoppable.
But I wouldn't do that if I was Portland. I'd be like, that's fine. You can keep your shitty Cat, and I'll keep rebuilding with my young guys.
Shitty cat.
Yeah, I mean that one is whatever. Toronto's just like they haven't picked any path. They just keep fucking trying. They keep trying to project like this position of strength. Like, oh, we don't care. We control everything here. You know, we're fine holding him into free agency. And it's like, dude, you just fucking lost Fred VanVleet for nothing. You lost Lowry last summer for fucking, you know, okay, yeah, you want to pretend Precious Chua in a second round pick of some great haul, like go for it, but get real. I think they're going to lose. They're probably, I mean, they're in a position where they could lose Pascal and OG next summer for nothing. Like, I don't know how you allow yourself to get into this position. It seems like Masai has just not picked a path at all. And he's just been like not capable of making tough decisions. He's constantly just kept betting on continuity. And the one time he traded for Pirtle at the deadline, which made no fucking sense to me.
I think that was just like, yeah, what you can, right?
Seems really like very good decision making.
I mean, I think sometimes GMs who want to wait it out and not take a big, you know, the Knicks get criticized for maybe getting the KP deal done early. But you know, like maybe if the Knicks, for example, that 19th pick that ended up becoming the Charlotte pick and then ended up becoming Cam Reddish, you know, maybe if they had their plan earlier in the draft, or they took a little bit of a discount, they could have gotten something better, right? Sometimes waiting can put you in a situation where you do have to do a little weird thing if you're going about value above all, right? Instead of fit, or instead of, you know, sometimes it can backfire. On aggregate, I think it works out for the front offices that take that view, but, you know, you're always going to have those kind of exceptions.
Yep. I think that's fair. To me, when you've all they're doing since they've won the championship, to me, is bleed talent. Like they've just kept bleeding talent, and I think it's fine if you're recouping value in some way for it, but they don't seem interested in that, or they haven't been committed to it, and they haven't done it. So I'm very, very interested to see how they manage the rest of this offseason, because from the outside looking in, they just look like a fucking mess. Which ironically, you know, to kind of maybe end on this, the Jaylen Brown thing is pretty interesting to me. He still hasn't signed his extension. He was in Vegas with like their team execs were also at the time. This feels weird, right? Like he hasn't extended yet, but every Boston person with Boston connections is like, yeah, no, there's nothing to worry about. He's totally going to extend Supermax. And I'm just like, is that it? Like he just, and then he's like, he's now in Europe or something. So like, oh, he's not going to talk until he gets back. It just feels like that just seems off. It seems off.
Landed in Europe, man. Shopping bags as a tourist, man. It's always weird with Boston. Like, when's the last time it went smoothly for them with a star? Kyrie thing was a disaster. I don't know. It's from what I've heard, it's like they both want to get it done and extend. I I'm not too. I like them saying that, and like I think that if there was something that Jaylen Brown wanted to get off his chest to demand a trade or to get somewhere else, we would have heard it. This isn't exactly a guy who's shy about being weird. So
I don't know. I mean, it might not be a demand though. Like it might not be. It might be, hey, I want the Supermax, and they're like, well, what if we give you like a little bit less than the Supermax? Well, it'll still go 5 years, but it'll be less than the full Supermax we can do. He's like, no, I want the full Supermax, and so they're doing this whole negotiation. And
who's
what
going to
if
blink
like
first? But I think someone's going to blink.
But what if it's not about blinking? What if the Celtics are like quietly like, all right, well, we'll do this negotiation with Jaylen Brown. But
let's see what we can get.
Yeah, quietly shopping him around because like, look, I've said this before to you on this pod. Like, I just think if you can trade Jaylen Brown for Damian Lillard or trade Jaylen Brown for shit that helps you get Damian Lillard, you should 1000% do that if you're Boston. Like, if you get a chance to pair Damian Lillard with Jason Tatum, you should do that. And you should feel really, really good about doing that.
If you can pair Dame with Jason Tatum.
Yeah, I mean, Jason Tatum's 25. Dame's 33. I know he's obviously a little older, but he had a fucking monster season last year. We know he's not a Harden, right? He takes care of himself. He's like, he's not spending fucking 2 months in Paris pretending to be like a fashion icon while wearing the most disgusting array of clothing possible. That's not what he's doing. And your biggest issue has been end game offense and all this, like your offense gets super clunky then in games. He fixes that. I really feel like this lack of ball handling they have now is an even bigger issue after getting Porzingis. Like he's a guy that needs a guard.
But he can do step back behind the back crossover at 7-3. Haven't you seen the clips?
I mean, he did win the skills challenge.
He won the skills challenge over Gordon Hayward, Boston legend.
Yes. Celtics legend Gordon Hayward. To me, it's just that team, Boston, the more as this offseason has gone on, the less I like what they've done so far. Like, they're not fucked or anything like that because they have all their picks. They have future picks they acquired, and obviously they have good players. But it just feels off. I don't like it. Something is weird with that team. I'm out on them as currently constructed. I don't think they're a contender.
I think KP next to Brown, Tatum, White, and
for 7 games a year.
It's the creation, right? That's the kind of what it comes back to. But I mean, why not get a guy like I'm not saying Campaign's going to solve their problems, but
you think Campaign's the missing piece?
Well, I think there are guys like that available, or maybe you give Pritchard a bigger role. I don't know.
But this is kind of where I'm at. Like, okay, look, think of it. The last championship teams we've seen, right? So this past year, it was obviously Denver. Year before is Golden State. Year before it is the Lakers. Milwaukee. Yeah, then it was the Lakers. Before that, it was the Lakers. Before that, it was the Raptors. Before, like, all these teams, right? Raptors had Lowry. Milwaukee had Drew. And they have Giannis, which is just like its own fucking thing. Lakers had LeBron, again, its own thing. Golden State had Steph.
But can Tatum be one of, like, LeBron is an otherworldly passer, but Tatum's a good passer. Like, is it just the rim pressure that changes the equation from him trying to be, like, I'm not saying there's other things that LeBron are better at than him too, but can Tatum play that role as the big?
You heard it here first, guys. Stacey doesn't think LeBron is better than Tatum at anything other than getting to the rim.
The point is if
balding.
But if the idea is that you need like some kind of a really trustworthy ball handler, is it too? I mean, I think it's too early to say Tatum can't be that. I think it helps.
But you're good enough to win now, right? The way they've operated.
And it's worth mentioning that Giannis does have Drew. LeBron had Rondo that year, who was still functional as a pretty good ball handler.
Are you Mark Jackson?
But like these teams have surrounded these guys with more capable guards. Like Drew is a more capable guard than anyone on the Boston roster.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So,
yeah, 100%. Like you, I don't think you necessarily need somebody as good as Dame, but I also would say that I don't think Tatum is as good as Giannis. Obviously, I don't think Tatum is as good as LeBron. At least
even now,
now is LeBron is it's too impossible for me to like. Rating him now is very very difficult. Like I don't fully understand it. He's safe to say he's still very 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 good. If you want to say Tatum is better than him, fine. If you want to say he's better than Tatum, fine. I don't have any strong feelings about that. But at that point,
but when they won the championship,
yeah,
LeBron was
LeBron was definitely better. I think Kawhi is obviously better, and Kawhi had Lowry, right? Kawhi had Lowry. Lowry's a better point guard than any point guard that Smart. He's better than Smart. He's better than Derek White. He's better than Malcolm Brogdon for sure. He's better than these guys. He's better than Pritchard, probably. I would guess. Can't be certain, but I think he'll be better than Pritchard. And like, you don't need necessarily a Dame, but you do need a better guard than this. And they've also just had like, it's also hard to find the right balance when you have so much scoring tied up in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Like, if they could get Kyle Lowry, that would be awesome for them. Because Lowry would, even in his old, fucking annoying, flopping fucking state.
I really don't want to praise Kyle Lowry at all. The series made me hate him.
but like he would be perfect for them, right? Because he'd be like, I'll take 7 shots. That's great, but I can handle the ball at the end of games. I can get you the ball when you need it and get you into your spots when you need them.
Complain to the refs and flop.
Yeah, I can bitch to the refs. I can be fat and annoying. Like I can check out for 45% of the season because I'm overweight. Come back after I hit Jenny Craig for a couple months and I'll be good to go. But like they don't have, I don't know, they just don't have a good enough creator. And like, you can have all the spacing in the world with Porzingis and all these guys, but like if you don't have that guy that you can trust in the end of games, or at least that can help Tatum more than the guys they've had, I just think it's a problem. And I also think I don't know if you can find the right balance with like the type of guard you probably need or the caliber of guard you need with Tatum and Brown requiring the usage they want, especially after getting Porzingis, which is why I would trade Brown. Like, I think this is the best time to trade Brown. I would 100% trade Brown. If I called
Brown
Portland,
for Siakam.
I wouldn't do that, but that would be funny. If I were Boston and I called Portland, I was like, what would you need? Like, what do we need to give you to get Damian Lillard? And I don't think they would want Jaylen Brown because Jaylen Brown's a flight risk, right? There will be teams that will not think he's a flight risk or be comfortable just giving him a full max. Like, fuck it, we'll do it. If you can get enough shit from them to reroute and with your own package of shit to get Damian Lillard, I'm doing that. Because yes, Tatum is young. Maybe Tatum can develop more as a ball handler, creator, whatever, and get there in time. But they're good enough, or they're at least operating like they're good enough to win right now. So their window now, it has to be right now. And I do think getting Damian Lillard makes them, I think they'd be the best team in the East. Like, at least they would have the highest ceiling in the East.
Right here, right now. I think Brunson against Lillard would be a fun series. Do you think it would affect their defensive schemes much? Because they do like to switch a lot. Like
they can't do that anyway now, right? Because you can't do that with KP.
He's looked more spry, and like most teams don't have the kind of guards. Like sure, like once in a while he'll get cooked, but it's like unless you're talking about like Brunson or that level of creator, and even then, like if your thing is just ISO your guard on Porzingis, I think like at this point if I had Porzingis, I'd be like, be my guest. If I was really committed to switching, you don't have to do that, but I don't think he necessarily outlaws. What makes it not feasible.
Yeah, I don't know if
it. I don't know what the best way to.
I don't know if he would ban it either, but no, I think I don't know. I can't see Porzingis out on the. You don't want him switching out a bunch on the perimeter, and I just feel like with him and Robert Williams and Horford, like I don't really know how you can switch a bunch at this point. I don't know, and then you also like if they wanted to keep switching, then I really feel like letting Grant Williams go is a mistake because he's a guy who's good in that scheme. Like he's a very valuable switch defender. So losing him makes no sense. And then you lost Smart too. Those two are probably, Smart is maybe the biggest key to the switching stuff because he's a guard who can do a lot of the very annoying and fucking just soul crushing things that Kyle Lowry does that makes him valuable defensively. So yeah, I think I don't think they can do the switching thing anymore. And that's kind of why I wouldn't worry about it with Dame. Like, you've already compromised on what your defensive identity was. I think they've gone, like, they seem like really offensive oriented now, don't they?
Yeah. Well,
And
I think
yeah.
they have, everyone is a plus defense. Like,
is Brogdon's not.
Brogdon's, I don't think
he's a minus, but he's okay. You can like
I
if
don't
he's
think
your
he's
worst,
a mi- like,
if he's
I mean,
your
I
worst
think his
defender,
impact stuff doesn't look good, but he plays on a team with good defense. Like he's a solid defender. He has good size. You can't really attack him. I think he's solid awareness. Like I don't see any red flags that pop out.
I'm taking Malcolm Brogdon to the cup every fucking time.
You person?
Yeah, me. I'm doing it in my flag shirt. No, I'm not. I'm not taking anybody to the cup anymore, or not that I ever did. But
you wouldn't take two girls to one cup.
Jesus. No, I don't know. I just get Dame. Just go get Dame. Like I think there are teams that are actually in position to get him that should want.
It's
to get
crazy
him.
that this thread is working, right? I'm not gonna come to work. Like, call that bluff. You're gonna say goodbye to what? $120 million?
For 4 years. Yeah, I'm not coming in. Okay, great.
Bye.
We're just gonna bank.
It's like, you know what else people say when they're like, "Oh my god, the next 4 years, I'm going to Canada until we get a new president." Nobody fucking does. So
nobody does that.
And I don't think Dame is leaving either, and he has a lot more to lose than probably most of those people.
Dude, I'm actually looking at places in Europe right now. I just can't be here. If Trump wins again, I'm out. All right, buddy. You tell yourself that. Best time to trade Brown for RJ. You keep dreaming about that, pal. I like this question. We can maybe close this. Do the Knicks try to create cap space if Brown heads towards free agency? I don't know.
They would have to know that he's they'd have to, like, if they have the things in place. I don't think it's so much create. I don't think that they'll do the thing that well, first of all, I don't think Brown is going to be that kind of free agent the way that like KD was, or KD and Kyrie were. Like, he's going to have a bidding war. Like the decision days, I think, are over. I think if someone is going to hit free agents, it's gonna look a lot more like Lonzo Ball or even Jalen Brunson did, even for like, especially for some of these, second tier stars. If the Knicks know that, if I would imagine that we don't want to insinuate that there's any tampering going on, of course.
Never happens.
But if somehow the Knicks had a very strong feeling that Jaylen Brown was going to sign with them, they would make it. Even now, you even see that, like, players will announce, "I'm signing with this team," and the team is like, "Yeah, like, we still have to work out the." But like, if they knew Brown was coming and they had to give up a first to like move off someone or a couple of guys, they'd do it, right? If you have to, but I don't even know. I don't know who you end up. I think the real question is, if are they looking at Jaylen Brown hitting free agency and saying, "Okay, well, would we rather deal with? I mean, would it be better for them to be dealing with Quickley's cap hold at that point, or extending him?" Right? Those kind of things, I think, is more what it would impact.
I think this pretty much seals it. Jaylen Brown's agent is Jason Glushan Sports Management. He's also the agent for Jericho Sims and Dante DiVincenzo. Jaylen Brown will be a New York Knick. No, this stuff, it's always funny when people do this because I don't know how. It definitely matters, but I don't think it matters like as linearly as people like to project.
It's a wazi, it's a woozy.
Yeah, you got to do a lot of.
It doesn't exist.
You got to do a lot of cocaine basically to figure it out. No, I mean they'd definitely be interested in Jaylen Brown. Like 100%, they'd be interested in Jaylen Brown. Just look at the profile of players they've been connected to this season, right? Paul George, Zach LaVine, like two-way wings that could,
Anunoby.
like that can slot into, quite frankly, what the role that RJ's in right now. Like, just slide into that spot in the starting lineup. I don't know how I'd feel about that. Like, Jaylen Brown is honestly one of the. He does so much stupid shit. Like, he's like an incredibly. Just his decision making is. Him and Julius Randle, let's just say together, they would be hell of a
Appointment viewing.
Choke. Yeah, they would be very fun to watch for other teams at times. Obviously, he famously can't dribble left, apparently. and
RJ can't dribble right.
Yeah.
Perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
But the pull-up shooting is real. He does have like stretches where he goes crazy as a scorer, just gets super hot, and he's like fucking drops 20 in a second. Defensively, I think he's become. I'm not sure if he's overrated now or if he's rated fine, because I feel like everybody now is of the opinion that he's overrated defensively. So he's probably rated fine now, which seems about right.
He's an average. Do you think he's like a better defender than RJ?
Yes. I think his top level when he's actually locked in defensively is like he's super disruptive on ball, especially. His biggest problem is mostly off ball stuff. Like he just falls asleep.
Which is the same with RJ, right?
Right. He just gives you a higher ceiling on ball especially when he's really locked in. Like he's, I've seen him really. I mean, he had Harden and Hell in a couple of those games in possessions and stuff. So, yeah, I mean that's there. I do think he's got a higher ceiling than RJ does, which is annoying to me because I don't like Jaylen Brown that much. But he's developed so much as a shooter. RJ hasn't done that yet. I think they have similar issues in terms of their playmaking, where it's like they're capable, but they get tunnel vision. So it feels like an upgrade on RJ. I don't know how much of one. And it's like, what are you doing to create the cap space? Can you create the cap space? Would Boston engage you in a sign and trade possibility? Like, is that something they'd be interested in, for lack of a better word or lack of better terms? But I don't know. We'll see what they do. Jaylen Brown is probably a name to keep an eye on, but as we know, Dante DiVincenzo will be recruiting him to the Knicks, so I don't think we need to worry about it.
Yeah.
So I guess Saquon didn't sign an extension, so he's just playing the franchise tag this year.
Maybe wants to. Well, that's interesting. I think as a lifelong Giants fan, I think they should give him.
It's done. It's past the
50.
deadline.
So now it's just he's just franchised.
Yes. Yeah.
As a lifelong Giants fan, I would have hoped that they would have given him $20 million a year. Running back is the most important position, as most people know, and the Giants should continue to be aware of that and continue to act that way.
He doesn't have to go to training camp, though, because he hasn't signed his tender yet. So he just only would lose game checks.
If he just doesn't, do you think he wouldn't do that?
I mean, maybe.
It's going to be the tag.
Good
stuff. Running back, the running back.
If I was a running back, I'd be like, I'm good. I'll stay in shape. Don't worry about me. But I'm not going to be participating in fucking training camp or preseason. I'll come for the last preseason game.
Who's their backup even? I don't know. The Rams proved you can get CJ Anderson off the couch.
Maybe they can bring Bradshaw back.
Free Bradshaw.
Bradshaw and Jacobs, bring them back.
How old? Earth, Wind, and Fire coming back. They have a running quarter. Well, that's another thing. If you have a running quarterback, does that kind of decrease how much you can not even trolling Giants fans anymore? Like Danny Jones is a real running threat. I don't know how much you want to run him, but even like a few times a game, if he's keeping, how much, like, I think that's part of the reason the Eagles let Miles Sanders go is like, we have a really good running QB, and I don't think Jones is that far behind for what it's worth. He's fast, and a reasonably instinctive runner when he's not falling on his face. I think that's a legitimate question. Do you need a high-end running back if you have a really good running quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, the other part is just like you said, you can always find running backs. I mean, you could probably find like Kareem Hunt's. I don't think he signed anywhere, right? But he just fucking sign his ass for a year.
Yeah, there's a bunch. You don't know the next person who's going to Kareem is that going to be a linebacker or?
It's true. I mean, there's always dudes like running back is the position where you really don't need to worry about it at all. And yeah, like you said, especially if you have a running quarterback, there's always options. So I would probably. I mean, this is why drafting Saquon was always just stupid because it's like you're never going to extend him, right? You're never going to have the money's never going to make sense to extend him. Just don't draft running backs top 10. Don't draft running backs in like the top 20. I'm okay with like late first. I get it. But even then, I just
especially it's usually late first. Also, as a Super Bowl contender, that it's like, yeah, you're, like if you drafted your 7th defensive end, who's good, but he's not going to get to play, right? That you could end up in the same boat, right? So it makes it look like if it's the Chiefs taking a running back at the end, and it's like, oh yeah, Andy Reid is going to use him as a receiver, and they don't need anything else. They're stacked everywhere else. That's fine, right? But
also helps when you just can like waste a pick like that because you have like Patrick Mahomes. Must be nice. Oh yeah, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He actually sucks. Don't worry about it. We found Isaiah Pacheco in round 7, which is like an argument right there to not draft running backs in the first round.
I've drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire in fantasy multiple times.
Yeah, that sucks.
Very quickly regretted it. So yeah.
All right, I think that's a good place to end it. Where we just did random football talk for 3 minutes. All right, Stacey, let them know they can find you and plug anything you'd like to plug.
Find me at StaceyPatton89 on Twitter. I will plug. I did a pod with Miranda a couple days back on the Believe Knicks. About some interesting questions about the Knicks offseason. The other thing I'll plug is whether you're a tennis fan or not, I would highly recommend going back and watching the Wimbledon final from yesterday. I've been watching tennis for over 20, 25 years. That was up there, one of the greatest matches I've ever seen, and just really fun. Remember the name Carlos Alcaraz, whether or not you're a tennis fan. So other than that, nothing else to plug.
Yeah. I have nothing to plug myself, so I'm going to plug all of the wonderful work at the Strickland. I would also say, yes, the tennis match yesterday was very, very fun. I enjoyed watching Novak Djokovic lose, although he was a good loser about it in his after post-match speech. But yeah, great match. And yeah, if you want to watch tennis, watch that match. It was very good. All right, that is our part for today. I hope everybody has a great week. This show was brought to you by BetOnline, which is the #1 source for everything betting. All right, again, that's our pod for today. Hope everybody has a great week, and I will see you on Friday.